Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hi, Jeremy.
How you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, good. Feels like a very long and strange week.
Very long and strange week, yes, which
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. So, welcome everybody to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation. Obviously got some news to start off with, and then we've got a few features, and we're going to tee up a new feature as well regards stocks and shares with a massive caveat. But let's start with a bit of news. Obviously, massive news this week. War breaking out in Europe. Obviously, not a insurance-related story, but just a huge world story. Quite incredible. And I was just reflecting on it's just quite exhausting, these macro events that are just affecting us constantly with the pandemic, and then lockdown, easing the lockdown, then Omicron, and you think, oh, we're just over that, and then something else comes along. It's quite difficult to deal with because there's absolutely nothing you can do with it, do about it. It's quite as you say, very strange times. Very strange.
It is, and it's terrible for the Ukraine. I think it's also pretty terrible for the world, but it's just someone was saying yesterday, you have to make a sort of psychological adjustment to these things because you don't think you really don't think they're going to happen, do you? Pandemic, war, things that perhaps we all felt were like old-fashioned news, but now here we are. Modern 21st century, all the tech you could shake a stick at, but still the same old problems beset us.
Yep.
Terrible.
Indeed. Yes, it is terrible. Let's just our thoughts go out to everybody involved in that difficult situation. So let's bring it back home into insurance land, and we both spotted a bit about the blueprint this week. Now at TinTech London Market, there was quite a lot of discussion about the roadmap that was released in January, 175-page document. And then this week, we saw that Oxbow had kind of released their partner's view, where I think they had 7 kind of different kind of questions and observations about the blueprint, similar to what we did with the Blueprint 1, Ben, if you remember. 7 questions we asked. But there we are, always the trailblazers. I actually thought it was a really good summary because it did pick up on some really quite interesting stuff. The main things that I pulled out of it was kind of this, as they termed it, has the blueprint lost its ambition? And a shift to reality. And we talked about this before, about the very ambitious and aspirational aims of the original document with very little detail. And now it's kind of shifted almost completely the other way, where those lofty ambitions have been put to one side in order to actually deliver some stuff. One of the other ones was, where is PPL? Well, we've talked about that before as well. DXC coming in. We announced that a few weeks ago as a kind of almost a non-story. It's like they've signed a deal. It's just interesting. I think the way that's going to develop. I think on the data front, that it is interesting that they have put this data council together, and it looks like they are moving forward Trying to get some traction around that, because obviously without those data standards, I think it's going to be very difficult to get anything done. But
yeah, I think it's not a bad piece of analysis by Greg and the team at Oxbow. I think most of it we've raised before, and we wouldn't disagree with. What's new in here? I think they raise a couple of things about legacy and new tech, and the sort of doubling of cost, and how's that going to work, and that is obviously potentially quite messy, I suppose. But then I think we're a long way away from implementation still, it feels like. Where I think everybody with their analysis struggles, including us, is when you start to say, so what should people be doing about this at the moment? And I think, and I don't think it's Oxbow's fault, but I think it is, it becomes quite generic at this point. They talk about a conscious engagement strategy, a connected tech strategy, and that insurers should become digitally minded. Well, they're very, they're general conclusions that I suppose anybody would say that's probably what the industry has to do as a whole, but they're not really addressing the specifics. What I think is also interesting about what they've written here, and we've talked about it before, is the fact that essentially with each step of this, Lloyd's tries to have ownership, but then it's increasingly ceding that ownership to the market, and they do very much kind of say that is, that's what's happening, and I think it is, and I think particularly our sense from the TinTech conference was a bit around that as well. So I think there's a bit of this kind of healthy competition, I suppose, coming in. So a little less sense of it's all just a Lloyd's game, and also, of course, it's not anymore, and they draw attention to that. It's an IUA and Lloyd's, so it's a whole London market game, and they, I mean, maybe politely they say that it's the distilled version of this, which has lost nearly all of its original ambition, is realistic, I suppose, is what you can say. But you do sort of think, why couldn't you have been realistic 2 years ago? And I guess that's hindsight. But I think we were saying it at the time, and I think we've talked about it a lot. We felt it was too ambitious. We felt it was not doable, and it clearly wasn't. So we're here, but there we are. That's so we'll see. We'll see.
I think we will see. I think the thing about this release, this kind of interactive document, is that it has a number of deadlines in it. So I think we'll be able to track, and be able to now hold them. I think that's one of the things that the market was saying, is that where is the timetable for delivery, and where are the deadlines for things to happen. So that's now been published. So at least we've got that kind of timeline, and we can benchmark really how far things are moving on or not. So so we look forward to that, and I'm sure we'll get perhaps Paul, we can get on as these deadlines come up, and we can get an insight into how
definitely.
Good, excellent. Right, thanks for that. Right, I was going to just touch on. We did touch on TinTech London Market, which happened a couple of weeks. I was going to say years ago. It feels like that.
Feels like it, doesn't it?
A couple of weeks ago, and we just highlighted some of the post-event tweets, and not tweets. That's 1990s, but LinkedIn posts that people had put up. Obviously, it was a great conference. I just thought, I've just been reflecting, I suppose, over the last couple of weeks about what are my key takeaways. I think the first one is the general mood in the room was very positive. There was not kind of that usual, oh yes, but kind of conversation. It was very much around business challenges and how technology can really help drive change, positive change in the industry, and that was that was really great to be part of. I also thought that IT and ops had found its mojo again. And I think we've talked about this before, about the pandemic, and it was operations and IT that enabled that work from home. And I think it's given them a renewed vigor as their purpose in the organization. On reflection, it is a bit, it's taken a pandemic for them to to wake up to that, and you kind of think, well, where were they in those strategic conversations before? But still, I think that did feed into that level of optimism in the room, and I certainly believe that people wanted to get back face to face, and it's just reinforced both our opinions that creative, innovative conversations happen better face to face. There is a place for digital and online and Teams and all the rest of it, but you could just tell there was an energy and a buzz around that you just can't kind of recreate in a digital environment, which is quite interesting, really.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it's they're a lively bunch. They're all pretty driven. That's a nice thing about that group, quite entrepreneurial. And I think them getting back together was important for everybody, just to feel that energy, I think, in the room, which you described, and I think that was what it was. Whether we'd feel the same if it was an insurance conference at the moment, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, won't it? But definitely, I think there was a sense that digital is happening. It's going to be. It doesn't matter what, in a sense, the predictions are. Most of those will be wrong, but something's going to happen, and something is happening. So that's good. Yeah, I feel that too now.
Yeah, good. So yes, just a few takeaways there and reflections on Tintech. So Ben, have you got a stat for the week?
Yeah.
What's the word on the data stream?
Hey Ben, what's the word on the data stream?
Never fails to put a smile on your face.
The word on the data stream is McKinsey. So the McKinsey report is out, the McKinsey insurance report. So that's what they're saying is the basic thing. It's been splashed across quite a lot of the trade press this week. The headline being that insurance is now a value-destroying industry. In other words, it don't make no money, and it hasn't done for some time. And the McKinsey report really points at some things which I'll talk about in a second, which they think need to happen overall. So their paper, which is worth a read, is a lot of analysis of various markets, insurance markets performing, and just bear in mind this is not the specialty market that we tend to focus on. This is the whole of the insurance market they're looking at. So where there's a lot of inertia in life and health. So this chart here, the data here, is showing really the different parts of the industry. I thought it was interesting to see where the different segments were, because it's not just the story of the insurance industry as a whole. So it's the first thing is that they're saying the brokers are doing very well, they're very profitable, and even if you look, this shows all different types of industry, and then just picks out the insurance industry. But insurance brokers are, kind of up there in the top. I suppose that's the kind of top third, top quartile of all industries in terms of the returns they're getting, which is very interesting. Life and health is making a loss. Multi-line is kind of becalmed, and so is reinsurance, interestingly. So, and property and casualty is just about above water, I suppose, in terms of economic profit. Has slightly gone backwards, I think. Whereas if you can compare with 2005, 2009, it's the insurance broking industry that's really moved forward. Now, that's got to be a lot to do with the business model, I suppose, but also the customer-centric model and the sales development of the whole industry and so on. And it's rather left the carriers behind, I think, and that's what McKinsey's saying, is the model's not working particularly well. So revenue growth is limited. The intermediaries are the one capturing the value. Scale economics. So they're saying that global scale hasn't really worked very well for a lot of these players, although scale within regions and countries has worked well. So when you've grown within a region, so in other words, it seems like they're saying the specialization works as long as you target it and don't just go for global growth and share that way. Because so in the end, it's all about the thoughtful strategy, I think, is unsurprisingly what McKinsey, being a strategy company, is saying. I don't think they're wrong, though. Productivity is pretty stagnant, actually, and this is interesting because the whole the industry is not highly productive in terms of its output. So that again is and profits at a standstill. So their conclusion, and the quote is, the fundamental structure of the industry is coming into question. I suppose you could say for P&C, that's not looking too bad. And I've just been working on some figures this morning where there is quite a strong growth predicted in P&C for various reasons over the next 5 years. I think that though what a lot of this is going to be about is really, as they talk about a reinvention of the industry, their recommendations are around ESG as the number one. So really getting a kind of purpose for the industry and sorting out where it sits on all the upcoming risks, climate and so on. Product innovation, getting into new risks. Obviously they've got to sort things out like cyber and climate, flood, etc., etc. Number 3, customer engagement and experience, which we've talked about a lot. Engagement with ecosystems and insurtech. So again, that's something that was very prevalent at the conference. New businesses for the digital age. The scale impact from the data and analytics, so using data and analytics much better. Technology, so they're saying technology industry has to modernize overall. And then finally, interestingly, reimagine the culture, the diversity and ways to attract talent, which again we've talked about. So they're not new recommendations, they're not new things, but it's reiterating what they think the industry has to do. So when McKinsey says something, people listen. And they've done their homework on the numbers. I don't think you're going to get a better or different set of numbers. So there it is in black and white. The industry has to sort of, particularly the insurance side of it, and reinsurance has to do something. Yeah. So
do they make a recommendation about what they need to do for those, or do they just say generically around the industry? Because when we talk about being customer centric and when we go to the conferences and we talk about extended value chain, especially in London, and how far away the underwriter is from the actual end client, and that disconnect, I think it kind of numbers.
I mean, I think one of the things that they draw out, and this has been drawn out elsewhere, is what's the potential for digital and technology, and that is where they say they could wrest back some of the value from the brokers. In other words, they could go direct in some way, shape, or form, or they could work out hybrid models with the brokers in a collaborative sense that work, where there is more of a efficient and technology-enabled delivery of products and services to the customer and to improve the customer experience. So I think that's the main area where they see things changing, and it's not surprising that they would that would be the case. There isn't much else you've got. There's a whole other debate about where do the insurers stand as brands and where do the brokers stand as brands and things like that. Claims, etc., etc. So there's a lot of detail and things, obviously, within all of the different types of businesses. But broadly speaking, I think it's a like everybody else, it's a technology will be the thing to get right.
Yeah, I think I agree with you as well. There's a lot of conversation about ecosystems and the way that products and services will be transacted in the future, and they're certainly not going to be transacted in the way that they have been in the past.
No.
I ran a breakfast briefing this week and it was centered around kind of transforming legacy technology, but also mindsets. And around the room, certainly just opening up a conversation about what insurance might look like in 5 years' time. And this was mainly in, personal lines, SME commercial space. It was, I think it was quite difficult in traditional organizations, even though they could see it. You go into Trainline, you buy your train ticket, it says, do you want to pay £1 and get covered for baggage, whatever, theft, loss, whatever. And you see it all the time now when you purchase things, the little add-on, and it almost seems natural that that's the way that kind of distribution and insurance is going to go. So, and then you go, well, what's the purpose of the underwriter in that scenario? And you can see that if you don't have a decent brand behind you, you will just be a capacity provider to, basically white label things. So it's interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the other thing is that in specialty, I think there is some other businesses that would say there's a lot of potential for P&C business because of the changing types of risk and the specialization element of it. And to me, that's a combination of humans and technology. I think it's data and humans essentially. So there's humans who create the solutions, if you like, I think, which is brain power using data. So there's great potential, I think, for P&C, and that'll probably pull up reinsurance as well if they could get it right. But as you say, it's hard to change because that is this idea of a reinvention is quite powerful, but it's also very difficult for an industry that doesn't find that easy, culturally or any other way, really. It kind of needs competition disruption, and it is competitive though, which is good. I think the whole how insurance technology businesses are going to work with insurers is going to be very interesting, because that's where you'd expect to see some of the breakthroughs. You'd see things happening where you suddenly have someone creating some efficiency. We see a bit of that, so Brit Kai, things like that, the Beazley syndicates, those sorts of things, if they start to show, actually there are ways in which this technology can actually create more profitable, more productive businesses, then people will start to cotton on to doing it, I think. And it'll move on.
So I'm running a breakfast briefing next week looking at automation in, I think, pre-bind underwriting, which is quite a niche area, but it's got a lot of traction. And I think I'll report back next week if there was anything interesting said in that round table. But it's certainly things are afoot, and people are trying something. We said show with Beazley Digital, forward-thinking organizations are taking these things seriously and trying to evolve and adapt.
And I think there's some concern in the traditional insurers now coming through about these new tech-enabled businesses that are coming into the insurance, the P&C space. I think that's a concern.
Good. That's the end of that.
That's the end of that.
That's the end of that.
That's all you get. 5 minutes, McKinsey. That's all you get on our show.
Right. After the success of our book reviews that we did in January.
Yes. Success.
Gosh,
incredible.
All over LinkedIn, people were recommending books and that you'd read, Ben.
I know.
It was great. That we thought we'd pull out another couple that we've read recently. So why don't you go first, Ben? Your dystopian nightmare, and then there we are.
It's a real book.
Wow.
So this is Don DeLillo, a very famous American writer. He's a postmodern writer, and this is a book that suits me because it's only 63 pages long. So that's one of the main reasons I picked it up. I thought, it's got some good comments on the front looks quite interesting, and it's only 63 pages. So if it's crap, I'll have finished it and before I know it. Anyway,
Yeah.
I read it last week, and I thought I'll put it up because one reason is that one of the characters is, guess what, a claims adjuster.
Wow.
At an insurance company. Well, that must be a first. That the character is a claims adjuster, and quite well paid apparently. Anyway, it's a strange book. It's rather Marmite. If you read the reviews, people either hate it or quite like it and find it a bit sort of troubling. And I was in the latter category. I found it quite interesting. So it's really about essentially what happens is it's set in 2022 after the pandemic. So the pandemic is kind of over. It's about now. So that was also an interesting factor in this as to what was the take on that. And the silence refers to the characters watching the Super Bowl final in 2022, and halfway through the television blanks, and effectively the setup is that the whole world, this is what you think is, or is the whole world's technology has stopped, and this is the kind of catastrophic thing that's happened, and then it's how these humans discuss and react to it. And essentially what it's about is the fact he's alluding to is that we've all been kind of digitally brainwashed effectively, and that we're also reliant on the screens, that time has, and Einstein's referred to a lot in this book, is time has become, in this screen-based world, has become irrelevant. It's become a notion that's owned by tech companies. So the world is kind of driven, if you like, by these kind of techie type of businesses, and that I think is, it's kind of resonates and is, what we would think. So in a way, once you have this silence, humans are then deprived of this technology. So the book's in two parts, the before and after. And there's a bit about people in a plane on a crash and all this. Anyway, it's a bit strange. But once you've taken the technology away, effectively, that's like the end of days, because everybody suddenly realizes that that time is kind of meaningless, and they're all just sort of little islands. We're not really communicating with one another, and we haven't been, and so we're lost as soon as the technology goes. And it's only the technology that's the kind of glue, and when that doesn't work, that's the end of the world, effectively, is what he's saying. And we're lost because we will find we have nothing in common with our friends and all that sort of thing. So it's a strange kind of postmodern thing, but I think it's an interesting idea. This whole thing about just that our minds have kind of been digitally remastered, as he puts it, by the technologists. And I think this is a theme that's carried through into lots of areas and questions that I've had at conferences about the dangers of technology and automation and AI and everything else that we talk about. So it's it's the warning that comes on the label with all of the modernization and automation of the industry, I think, again, if we take it into the insurance space. But it's a sort of unsettling book, really. But even if you hate it, it's, as I say, it's only 63 pages. so there were bits where I just thought, oh, this is nonsense. It's just don't get it. And then there were bits where I thought, oh, that's it, an interesting concept.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I would question it myself. I think, well, I don't think, I know that we are hardwired in our brains to be social animals, and we actually, when we meet people in any kind of context, really, apart from a fight, you get this kind of flash up inside you, these they run it on an MRI scan, and they can actually see a part of your brain really trips when you meet and engage with people. And actually, helping and to help people trips it even more, gives it an even stronger boost. So we're kind of, generally speaking, hardwired to be supposed to be nice to one another. Given the
yes, but it is interesting though, because there's a statistic that that 75% of screen content is viewed for less than 1 minute. And the reason for that is this, what they call this neurological high you get from switching all the time from one thing to another on screens. And that you get, and what that is about the technology being set up in such a way that it just, it attracts your, it extracts your attention the whole time, you know. And so it is kind of concerning, some of that stuff, I think, really. And, you know, that we're actually changing, I suppose, as a result of it. So you change from those social beings into ones that are just, you know, if I look at my kids, that's all they do, you know, so just look at screens all the time.
Yeah.
And if I come anywhere near them, when they shout at me, go away.
Yeah. I do get that as well. Oh.
There we are.
I'll have to read it. Very good. Right, let me lighten the mood a bit with where's my little here we are. So I thought I would share this. So it's a comic book, How the World Really Works. And this guy, Guy Fawkes, he publishes a whole series of How the World Really Works books, everything from fire stations to whatever. And this one is insurance at Lloyd's of London. And it's a comic book, but actually it's really well written. And if you look at the back of the contributors, there's a lot of CEOs and very senior people from the industry that we'd all recognize that have contributed to this.
Really?
And it's actually really, really good. I haven't got any pages inside, obviously, because they want to sell it. But they are little cartoons, and just very simply going through how insurance works at Lloyd's, and it's great, you know, for somebody coming into the industry who has no idea how it works. It very simply lays out kind of who does what, when things happen, you know, who pays, all this kind of thing, without getting bogged down in a lot of the technical stuff that seems to happen when you know, we all sit around the table going, well, that'll never work because DXC's blah 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 X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I recommend this book, Guy Fawkes' History Project Limited. They're all books that are not for profit. So I think everybody gives up their time for free. And as I say, I think it's great. It's a really interesting little book. It's not even 63 pages. I think it might be even 50 pages. And 3/4 of that is a cartoon. So right up my street.
That's your sort of book, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. That is a holiday book. That would last me 2 weeks.
That's one of the worst pictures of Lloyd's I've ever seen on the front.
I don't know.
What is that? Is that postmodern? Yeah.
Postmodern.
It does look good. Yeah, who's on the back then? Who are the people who've contributed that we would know?
Oh, I'll have to get the real book and have a look. But listen. But Julian James from memory.
Yeah.
And lots of people from Lloyd's, obviously they've supported this, got a logo on the front.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and you can tell that there is that kind of
knowledge,
both that kind of deep insight, but also someone's gone, no, that's too complicated. Strip it back. What do you really mean?
Yeah.
I think it's really, really useful.
Why have we not been asked? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I know. There we are.
Next edition, I want to be on the back of that book.
Yeah. Maybe they know it too well.
I might ask to draw the picture on the front as well.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it's going to look like in a few years' time.
No, that's the new one they're going to.
It looks like a coffee machine.
That's the new place they're going to. That's their new building.
Yeah. Hey ho. There we are. That's my recommendation.
That's a good recommendation. That'll be flying off the shelves.
Yeah. Feel free to buy it. It's only £8 as well. So there you go.
Oh,
Absolute bargain.
Good one.
Right. Okay. So we are going to introduce something we're going to do in the future, which is kind of based a little bit on the McKinsey conversation that we had around how organizations function, who's doing well, why they're doing well, and things like that. And we're going to look at, actually, I think I might have given it a name, Ben.
Ah.
Let me see. Oh, top of the stocks.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, there we are. So we're gonna pick a stock, insurance stock, and each week we're going to try and analyze it. Now, there is a caveat around this to say that we are not giving any kind of advice or we have any kind of knowledge around the analysis. However, we will look at a stock and we will kind of analyze perhaps why it may have gone up or down, and then a little bit of context, given our experience and the people we know about what's going on in those organizations and why they might be doing well or not so well. So we just thought we'd tee that up. Feel free to get in touch if you've got a company you want us to review.
Yeah.
And we'll do that. But have we got any?
We're starting. I know we're starting with. We're going to start with Hiscox.
Okay.
I think.
Good.
Yeah, because they've had an interesting recent history, one might say.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we'll look at Hiscox next week.
And I thought we talked about it. One of the reasons we're doing this is because, well, Ben used to do this a little bit as part of your role as an analyst, and we were talking about whether those analysts and fund managers actually understand the businesses that they're actually investing in, and how important are some of the intangibles that we're really keen on. So leadership and culture and strategic purpose and things like that. And I think one of the things we were just talking about is what happens when the stock price, when you have a new CEO, for example, or a new leadership team, or the CFO leaves, or something like that. So we're just going to do a bit of analysis on some stocks and see where the conversation takes us, I suppose, in our normal way.
Yeah, be good. I'm looking forward to that. It'd be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to do it. I've got to do it as well, haven't we?
You've got to do it, yeah, Ben. I know you're looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it, but I've got to do it. That's the trouble. Oh,
yeah.
God. Yeah. Dear Lord.
Very good. Right. That's next week. Right, we're out of stuff. So what are you doing this weekend, Ben? It's going to be good weather.
It's going to be lovely weather. I'm going to Brighton. I'm going away. I'm going to watch a show. Stuart Lee, if you know him.
I do.
Comedian.
Yeah, very good.
I'm watching him tomorrow, and then dinner tonight in Brighton. So shortly after this, I shall be heading off there.
Excellent. Good. Well, I might be collecting a new car, but if that happens, I'll tell you more about it next week.
Is it a good car?
I can't jinx it in case it all goes wrong.
Okay. No. Okay. I get it.
Yes, it's a silly car that you wouldn't buy if you were taking your stock picking analyst hat on. You would just go, no, what are you doing? You're a madman. But anyway, we'll see. More of that next week. Teaser.
Yeah, that's a good teaser. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Great. Right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We shall see you next week. And have a good weekend.
Yep. Have a great weekend. Bye all.
Bye.